Hello, and welcome to the third video in my series on weaving with cardboard. So if you've been following along, you'll likely have something that looks like this. Your box is probably starting to look quite a bit like a cardboard box. And this is where I stopped at the end of the last video. And my box, there's some things going on. I've got lots of little bits hanging off the bottom. I noticed there are some loose areas. And the first thing I'll want to do before I start finishing, if any of these bits on the bottom are bothering me, and you haven't already done this, you'll just want to trim them off, cut them off. You can leave them if you don't mind them. Sometimes I like to have little bits of things hanging off my weaving, like on this vest that I'm wearing today. But sometimes that's not the look you're going for, so you just trim them off. Any of the loose bits that are in your way. And then you'll also want to look around the sides of your box and see if there are any loose areas. And if you see anything that's loose, just undo some of the clips and just give them a tug. It probably won't hurt to go all the way around your box and give a tug on all the areas. Now here's one that is, oh, you can't see it when I'm doing that. Let me move down so you can see the box that I'm working on. So where is that? Here's a particularly loose area. So I'm going to undo that clip and give it a good hard tug so things are more snug. And the ones beside it look a little bit loose too. And I'll just go around my box and see what's loose. The rest of it looks pretty good. Maybe this one, things show up backwards in my monitor, so I have to kind of guess which direction to go in. That one, this one's looking loose again. So then once all the weavers are fairly snug, you're not going to be able to do a lot about the ones going around the side, but the vertical ones, you can tighten them up. You still have the ones that are glued into place are not going to move, but any that are not glued and are loose still, you'll be able to still shift them around. So now you have to decide what you want to do with the top edge. So the very, very, very most simple thing to do with the top edge is just to cut all your weavers off flush and then glue them. So what I would do is I would cut here, I would cut all of these, and probably what I'm going to do is I'll demonstrate a different technique on each side of this particular box. So I will just cut these off flush with the top edge of my box. And glue them into place. Now where did my glue go? I've lost the thing that I was using as a stick, so I'm going to use a piece of cardboard. My glue was not being very cooperative. It was not coming out very easily. So I'm just digging around in here to get some glue out. So I will put some glue on the top edges there and close peg them into place. Make sure it's nice and snug, because after the glue is dry, I'm not going to really have, you can peel it off, but I'm not going to have too much of an opportunity to move things around after the glue's dry. So that's one look, and you get a clean edge. It's not a very finished edge, but you might like that. That might work for you. Another option is and I've done two things here. So I have folded this is a lid of one of my boxes. I've folded all of the ends to the inside. So on this side, and how, oh, I see, that worked because it was a lid. So what that would look like, it probably won't work that well here, so I'm probably not going to demonstrate that, but if you wanted to do that, you could fold one edge in, one edge out, and that would give you some sort of an edge, but I don't think that that is particularly interesting. I don't really like the way it looks. So the other thing you could do is you could take a piece of cardboard and fold a lip over the top edge. Now, let's see. This box here is done like that. This is a two-part thing, and I will talk about this when I talk about the lids. So you can see here, I've taken a folded piece of cardboard and I've just folded it over the top edge. I've cut the edge just like I showed you here on this box, but then I've taken another strip of cardboard and folded it over the top to hide the top edge. And that gives a nice clean finish to the edge. Well, if your cut piece is clean, it'll give you a nice clean finish. Now, if you're going to do this, now remember when we were cutting our strips for weaving, our long strips for weaving, we cut these strips with the corrugations going in this direction. When I cut the piece of cardboard to fit over the top edge, I cut it so the corrugations were going in this direction, and that made a nice clean fold along the top lip. So you can just glue that into place and flip it on, let it dry. You would trim it so that it fits nicely on your edge. This one's a little bit short, so I probably wouldn't use this one here. And let it dry, and then that's finished as well. So those are two options for your top edge. When several years ago, I took a cedar weaving class, and they made a really kind of a fancy top edge that was sewn on with sinew. I don't know how to make that edge. If you know how to do that, your basket weaving skills are probably more advanced than mine, and you can certainly do that kind of an edge. There's a lot of folding off the material, in this case cardboard, and sewing with another material, so you can do whatever edge you like. So those are basically the finishing process. I also want to talk to you about lids, and I've made a variety of different lids. When I showed you this, I said this was a two-part process. I've folded the strips over the top, but I've also glued in this little ridge on the inside. And if you're a potter, you might refer to that little ridge that I've glued not right at the edge. There's a little lip here that you can see here. And the reason that it's like that is this lid sits on the top there. And the ridge here that I've created just with two extra strips of cardboard that are just glued onto the inside. Those strips let the lid sit flat on the top. It's a decorative lid. It will fall off if you tip your box upside down. And then I've woven the strips for the lid just as we did with the bottom, but without the extra weavers hanging out the sides. I've also made a little knob here just by rolling up a piece of cardboard. But although it looks like it's just a rolled up piece of cardboard that's been glued on, if you just glue it on, that's not going to be very secure. If you take a really close look, and it's going to be hard to see, you can see that what I actually did was I rolled up the cardboard, and then I snipped the ends. I created a little snip on the end, and that little tab there is tucked into the fold and glued underneath, so that one goes one way and the other one goes the other way. Oh, that looks like it's glued. I can't get that. I can't get into there. But anyway, it's, where is somewhere that I could get into? One goes, I've glued it into the very, very tight spaces there. Anyway, one goes that way and one goes the other way. And you'd have to spend some time. I guess this lid, the edges are glued down, so I'm not going to be able to show you because the pieces are glued down. Maybe here. Pretend this was the lid. Yeah, because these are not glued into place. So one tab goes one way and the other tab goes the other way, and they're glued in so that they're not going to come off. And then that even without gluing, that little knob is quite secure. So if you wanted to create a lid that lies flush on the top of your box, that would be it. So you would use weavers that are the same as that you use for the box, and you might have to trim the edges a little bit so it's slightly smaller than the outside edge of your box and it sits on the top, but fiddle around with that so that you get it to be the same size. So that's one option for a lid. Another option for a lid is a lid that wraps around the edge. And this is woven in exactly the same way that you weave your box. You can actually use the same size strips and the same number of strips. In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I didn't, but I've used 6 strips across here, and there are 7 strips across the top. These strips on the top are actually narrower than the strips that I used to use for the box. I think that you have to fiddle, you can fiddle around and figure out what works, but what I think works quite well is if you use the same number of strips in both directions, but you just space them slightly apart, and you can fiddle around with it until you get something that fits nicely. This one I've folded over one row over the side. You can fold it over 2, depending on what look you'd like to achieve for your box. So that's the second lid. You don't need any knob. You can just lift it off. It, depending on how, it doesn't fit perfectly, but depending on how you size it, you can get it to fit quite snugly. You can also add some shims on the inside. If your lid is a little bit too big, you can add a strip on the inside to make it fit a little bit better. In this particular box, I lined the inside with some uncut cardboard, mainly because I had some leftover painted cardboard and I wanted to use it up. So I just cut it so that it fit the bottom, fit up the sides, and I also put teeny little strips along the top edge so you don't see the cut edge. So these two are finished in a similar way, but this one, the cut edges, or the top edge is visible, and this one I just covered it up with a really narrow strip of cardboard. Probably some leftover bits that I had that I wanted to use up. So 2 options for lids. The third lid that I have, and this is going to give you some color possibilities as well. I didn't talk about the color possibilities, but this lid is attached to the box. And that's quite simple to do, and I suspect that you've guessed how to do that. So what you do is you would weave your box just as you did, but on one side of the box, instead of cutting that edge off, you would have much longer strips. And then those strips are going to, and then you would just weave, you would weave straight across just as you would for the bottom, and those strips will fold over to form the lid. So you'll have to make sure that they're long enough to fold all the way across the box, and if you want them to fold over the edge, just weave them so that they're long enough to fold over again. So I'll show you that lid again. So after I finished my box, I continued weaving up one side, just back and forth, like this, back and forth, strips across. I just wove strip, 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 strip straight across until it was long enough to fit over the top of the box and fold over. And I've just folded this cardboard. And if you're wondering how sturdy this box is, I wove all of these boxes except the one that I've done as a demo. I wove them over 25 years ago, and they're still pretty solid. The other thing that I wanted to point out to this is you can see the checkerboard design that I've got on the sides of this box. So that design is created when you have two different colors of strips. You actually need three different colors of strips if you want the checkerboard to, you want the checkerboard all over your box. You need the strips going in one direction here on the bottom to be one color. The strips going in the other direction are a different color. And then when you flip up, you'll have two different colors. So these two sides will be one color and these two sides will be another color. And this is why you need a third color, because if you've only got two colors, if you weave them around, if you had pink and blue and you wove across with pink, then this side would be solid pink, this side would be pink and blue. But if you want this side, all of these to be checkerboards, then you need a third color. The other option is to weave a solid color at the bottom here. So I could just weave pink at the bottom. Then when I lift up the sides, all of the vertical strips are going to be pink. And then I can weave across around the box with blue strips, and I would have a pink and blue checkerboard all around the sides, but the bottom would be solid, whatever color I chose. Okay, this one as well, I've added strips along the edge to finish the edges nicely and along this lip as well. So those are the different variations for weaving and for finishing your boxes and for creating lids. I'm not going to demonstrate because I hope that you've got enough weaving experience now that you could go ahead and weave this on your own. And I hope you've enjoyed this series of videos. If you'd like to see more, some of my other weaving or other things that I do, then please get in touch with the Earth Hand Gleaners and let us know. Thank you.